We actually, it's kind of funny, last year in January we had 2011 trends in IT. Anybody here last year for that one? Anybody remember whether or not I got it?
No, yes. Yes.
Okay, did I get anything right? Did AOL make that big comeback I was predicting? Anyway, could happen. This is going downhill. And also, anyway, how can we help? We can do all these things. We're wonderful at it. Yay. Okay, this is something we're just so you're aware of. We're going to be adding, right now we have 3 full-time, myself, 3 full-time techs, more all purposes of 4 full-time techs, but a part-time tech, John, who's a sales marketing, and a part-time marketing person. We're going to be adding an administrative staff office manager position first quarter of this year, so if you're interested, shoot us an email, all that kind of thing. Or if you know people who might be interested and you want to warn them away, tell them to avoid this email address, whatever. So we are literally, quite honestly, I just made the decision. We've talked about it a little bit. Actually, I didn't even mention to John that I finally made the go-ahead decision. So we're still working on the details.
Last to go, first to go.
There you go. That sometimes would be me, though. Okay. Again, in a lot of cases, what will happen if you start reading the IT trend articles and all that kind of fun stuff is that people will talk about these grandiose issues that are coming up. We're going to strictly talk about small, medium businesses and where I think the impact is going to actually hit. And I guarantee you, whatever topics you see up here, I'm going to bring up other stuff, and I'll probably ignore some topics as well. So, okay. I like this cartoon last year. I'm using it again this year. We still have this issue with the cloud where a lot of people are just, it's kind of like that E thing we went through about 10, 12 years ago, where everybody thought you'd have a great company if you just put a lowercase e at the beginning, and then E pets and E everybody kind of went out of business. Well, now we're talking the same thing with cloud strategies. Everybody's talking about the cloud this, cloud that. And I want to be very clear, cloud is a critical strategy. However, it is just that, it is a strategy. There is truly nothing unique about the cloud. You're using resources that are not on site. Now, whether they're your resources or somebody else's resources, whether it's a software as a service or whatever. Now, here are the key things that I think people need to keep in mind. And by the way, we brought about 12 companies onto cloud-based email in 2011. So we're not shying away from this at all. One of the key things though, every major player in the cloud had outages in 2011. Google had them, Amazon had them, Microsoft had them. Even the third-party niche players had them. There are some companies who are providing, for example, hosted exchange, who are kowtowing, basically saying, we have much more secure, much more addressable. They had outages. Oh, okay. Well, I better keep my stuff local. That's okay. Time Warner had outages. Okay? So we have companies who have their exchange and their email local. They had outages because Time Warner had issues. So things that are outside of your control, stuff happens. Okay? And one of the problems is that I don't see that changing. I don't see anybody coming up with the magic bullet that is going to guarantee 5, 6, 7, 9 availability. All these outages, for the most part, were a couple of hours. Sony, PlayStation. You guys remember any of you gamers here? Cool. Yeah. They lost connectivity for months because of some of their issues. Okay, and gaming is a bigger industry than Hollywood.
Really, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Here's the problem: is when people start talking about cloud, they're throwing that name around like it means different things to different people. But for the most part, where we're talking about, it's where the resource is not here.
Would it be like Microsoft Exchange? Like
It would be a Microsoft Exchange where Microsoft is hosting the Exchange. So they actually have it. The problem is that the cloud is a very, very widely encompassing term. And when most people use it from a service standpoint, it is where someone would say, for example, I want to have email. I have 10 users, or I have 10,000 users, either one works, and I want to have email for my organization. I'm going to do it one of two ways. I'm going to do it on-premise, in which case I'm going to buy the server, I'm going to buy the software, I'm going to have all that stuff here, I'm going to pay someone to configure it, I'm going to pay someone to administrate it, watch over it, back it up, do all those kind of things, in which case I've got some capital investments, I've got to buy some software licensing, all that kind of thing. Or I'm going to go online, go to Microsoft site, for that matter you can do Google as well, but I'd cry. You go to Microsoft site, you sign up for the same services, but you're signing up for them as a service.
so web-based versus.
Not really.
No.
No, because the service is then brought down to your Outlook.
Okay.
So you could have, in this particular case, you would have Outlook sitting here. It's connecting to an Exchange server, just like you would be if it was on premise. You're seeing that exact same experience with a couple of exceptions. But you're only paying a monthly fee as a service. So if you wanted to have, for example, if you wanted to have an Exchange mailbox that you can use with your version of Outlook, and you can use it with Outlook Web Access, and you can use it on your smartphones, all that kind of thing, you'd be paying $5 a month. Okay? You start talking about an Exchange environment and all that, you're talking several $1,000s. Okay? So does that help as far as cloud goes?
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. And really the key thing is it's a service. Okay? That's the biggest issue. When you're buying the server and you're buying the software and all that, you're purchasing it, you own it, all that kind of fun stuff. When you're doing the cloud-based services, they are a service. They're responsible for backing up your data, they're responsible for maintaining the servers, they're responsible, you have to maintain your accounts and all that, so, okay? First tier applications, email and storage, continue the march towards commodity. It's getting tougher and tougher to differentiate. To really say, why is your service so much better than theirs? Okay? And there are reasons why, especially if you look at we got the Google, and we got the Microsoft, and then we got everybody else who's doing their own thing. Everybody else is doing their own thing. None of them, for the most part, are competing based on price. Most of them are competing based on other issues, security, specific functionality, better customer service, whatever. Google and Microsoft, they're going head-to-head, toe-to-toe, all that good fun stuff. Okay. More vertical applications make the move to the cloud. What do we mean by that? We're going to start seeing, actually it's already happening, but we're going to start seeing on some of the primary guys, where ERP systems, which manage an entire company, soup to nuts, are now cloud-based. So we've got one client, for example, that has manufacturing facilities in about 4 or 5 states, and they're finishing up a migration to an ERP, a new ERP system.
What does ERP stand for?
I'm sorry?
What does ERP stand for?
Enterprise Resource Planning. Yeah. It essentially is everything from manufacturing, human resource, accounting, all software, everything that deals with that company in theory. SAP would be a great example of ERP. And there's a whole bunch of smaller products that work with.
It's like a database, right?
It's the full application. It does everything. For all purposes, nothing happens. I'm exaggerating here a little bit. Nothing happens in your business officially if it doesn't go through ERP. So everything, and obviously this is for much larger organizations.
Yeah.
Okay, but that way there's one database or collection of databases that defines the operations of the business. Okay, and before, significant investment in hardware, software, all that kind of fun stuff. Now you're starting to see more and more companies where the company I'm talking about in particular, for example, well, they have 5 or 6 locations, so do they put servers in each location? No, they don't put servers anywhere. The third party owns the servers. They're just paying monthly fees for it. Absolutely, it can be. And quite honestly, and here's it's a good point, it sounds risky. Everything in this business is risky. If you buy your own server and you put it in wrong and you don't configure the software right and you don't know how to do any of that sort of stuff, that's risky. And I've seen locations who do that. If you put it up in the cloud and you don't pay attention to their bandwidth report, you don't do it, that's risky. I mean, essentially, IT is risky. You don't do your homework.
And do you customize all the products for each company?
Do we as
Oh, I don't
particular?
know if that's what your company does.
We work with vendors that do that. There's just so many applications
Right.
that we can't profess to be experts at all of them. We can't even get a projector to be right side up, so, you know. But the challenge is that somebody needs to. Somebody needs to, because there's that business process and then there's the IT process. We need those to be in sync.
Right.
And if they're not, that's an issue. Yeah.
I want to make a point to applications moving to the cloud. At Lifehacker, we have our own email server on premises. By the time I pay for backup and a few other components to run that email, for my 20-some users, I think I'm paying close to $20 a month per user's mailbox to run that server. We're looking at moving all of our servers into the cloud. And if I do that, email will cost me close to $40 a month per user, per mailbox. So if we, not in a hosted solution,
Right. No,
the
no,
same
no,
way it is now.
Gotcha.
So then my other option is to move it to Office 365, like Bob's referring to,
Right.
for $5 a month. And that's really what it comes down to is, what are the important pieces of that puzzle? Are you worried about the outage? Are you worried about, like in my case, I've got an old server that the email sits on. So probably later this year, I've got to go one way or the other, buy a new server, go, move it all to the cloud or go to the service. So
Yep.
that's one of the quick ways that I can make heads and tails over is $5 a month versus 20 versus 40.
Yep.
And I must say that we've had it for about a year now, and you guys helped us switch over a little bit, and it's been perfect. I mean,
Cool.
we've not had any problem with it. We have probably 15 computers on it, multiple iPhones and web access and everything we haven't had. It's been like night and day for us, because we weren't on a server-based environment. We were just a peer-to-peer network. And what it allowed us to do was sharing contacts and calendars and do everything, and we've never noticed an outage, so.
Cool.
So,
Good, glad to hear both feedbacks. Yeah, and I guess, and the minor outage is becoming more acceptable. I just think as people go more and more towards the commodity pricing and all that kind of fun stuff, and it's kind of like similar to airlines, as we become more and more aggressively after price for airline tickets and all that kind of thing, there's a certain degradation in service that happens. And we've grown about it, we're grumble and all that kind of thing, but we don't want to pay that higher price. So, we will bring our own peanuts and all that kind of fun stuff. And I think to a certain degree, that same sort of thing is going to happen. Microsoft. Well, and here's what I mean by this is actually a strategy. They're not going to say it, but it is. Because I don't know, how many of you guys remember when Windows 95 launched? Mm-hmm. I remember where I was. Why are you laughing? It was so cool. It was a media event. A new operating system got released. We actually saw people in Australia who wanted to be the first. Not so much anymore. And that's the way they want it. Because part of the problem is we still have a lot of people who are running around with Windows XP and Office 2003. And those jerks are actually using the software and it's still productive for them. What is wrong with you guys? Don't you, there's an economic need. Think of the children. But the problem is that they would come out with something that was stable, strong, it worked, and it would take years to come up with the next one. And then the next one, which would have been, Vista, didn't do quite as well, didn't live up to the hype. Actually, once it finally got, it was actually pretty good. So what they did about 2007, 2008, is Microsoft started a new strategy. And it's actually working pretty well for them. Every 2 years, they'll come out with a new version. And then every 2 years, they'll come out with a new release for that version. You hear the R2, you know, this. So Vista, followed 2 years later by Windows Vista R2. I'm sorry, Windows 7. Who's kidding who? That was Vista R2. That's what it was supposed to be. Office 2007, in order to get in sync with everything, they then came out with Office 2010. 2012. SQL 2008. SQL 2008 R2 in 2010. SQL 2000. 20,120. They're actually, this is a significant upgrade. This will have the telepathy, and this will also have the jetpacks. Okay?
Bob, can I ask a question?
Yep.
You know, automatically, a lot of times you get a message saying, you know, Windows wants you to download this update.
Yep.
And I recently had a bad experience. I mean, I'm really a Mac user, Mac fan, but I'm in the PC world because of business.
That's fine.
But I use PC because of business, okay? So originally I had an IBM ThinkPad when IBM built them, and it was great for 6 years. In 5 months, I've been through 2 IBM ThinkPads because IBM no longer builds them, Lenovo does, and every time I get one, it's garbage because every time a Windows update downloads automatically, it knocks out the internet card. I can't get online even with an Ethernet cord.
Okay.
So it's nothing but problematic. So these IBM technicians actually said to me, don't accept any Windows updates, and you'll be fine. But I mean, I'm getting rid of the computer and going to another brand altogether. But are you supposed to accept the updates? Are you supposed to know which ones to pick and choose? Are you supposed to say no? What happens if you do say no? What's the issue with this? Because it doesn't make sense.
Here's the thing. Those are the guys who would basically say next month we're going to have the projector upside down again. Because we found a way to fix the projector that we don't have to actually fix it. And the problem is that in some cases, it's real easy for me to say this because I don't know the specific details, but Microsoft, there's what's called, here's the problem, is Apple has one manufacturer for Apple stuff. It's a company in California called Apple. Okay? That's it. They write the software, they approve the hardware, there's no question.
No compatibility issues?
There's no compatibility issues because it's them.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why it's superior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In that aspect of it, absolutely. It's also why it's boring. Okay? In the sense, and I actually mean that. In the sense that no one is building anything new or different or exciting or something that takes advantage of things in a different way, or something that is just a little higher, because there's only one vendor.
But I thought,
okay.
Yeah.
In the IBM world, in the PC world. Okay?
Okay.
Nobody's buying that additional stuff. Well, the problem is that sometimes it really doesn't work as well as you think it would. So Microsoft has what's called an HCL, a hardware compatibility list. It is their list of all of the pieces and parts that have been officially, no ifs, ands, or buts, blessed to work with Windows. Okay? There's no need for additional drivers. My suspicion is your network cards are not on that list, which means that Microsoft can't guarantee that that network card is going to work with every update.
so why? You know, to me, it's almost like the insurance, some of the insurance industry that just rips people off and doesn't care what the outcome is. I mean, because the frustration and the aggravation, the loss of income, and the failure to be able to submit papers and graduate courses on time has just left me with chest pains, literally. So, I mean, why do they produce these machines like this if they're not going to work?
I can't speak to Lenovo specifically, but there are some laptops that I'll buy and some laptops that I won't. And essentially, it's when we're talking about larger numbers, we'll get into the whole thing about are these all on the HCL? And if they're not on the HCL, it's not worth my bother because I'm opening myself up to issues.
Well, it's really based on Apple does everything their way. If you want to do it, you have to get them to agree to the set.
Yeah.
I don't like that because basically it says everything's going to go this way. It's like every car had to be made by GM and nobody else can make a car. Well, the problem you get into is eventually you become stagnant, you know, and your prices for Apple stuff, I mean, $400, $500 for a phone and the laptops. the thing that, again, in incompatibility, is somebody says, well, we're going to make this laptop, we're going to get it to $300 because we know we have a market and people will pay $300.
Right.
So it really gets back to the point, get what you pay for. If you look at a laptop and you say IBM's a good brand or whatever, and you buy that laptop, you have to put up with some of that stuff. So if you buy a cheaper car, like a Yugo, you're going to have some problems, but that's all you can afford. If you buy a Cadillac, it's going to be a great car, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. When you take it to the CAD, it's going to cost you a lot to get it fixed. And of course, they're going to take care of all the problems. So really, it's really based on having and that company that makes the cheaper one, they might be able to make a better product. So it's like anything. I mean, like, well, let's force people to always do this and that, and people don't want that. They want choice. So your solution is to buy a better laptop. Again, there are laptops that I won't buy, and there are other ones that, so it's life.
And let me reiterate one real quick thing. Macs are good machines.
Oh, I know.
Nothing wrong with anything that they do or all that.
I know.
Can you go online to see this HCL list?
Yeah, just do a Google search. Excuse me, Bing. Actually, I hate to say this because Microsoft, by the way, Microsoft will be sponsoring all of our luncheoners this year, and by sponsoring, they're giving us a copy of Windows and Office and all that kind of thing. So kidding aside, I have a love-hate relationship with them, and they have a hate-hate relationship with me. But you can actually, if you're doing a Microsoft presentation and you say Google is a verb, you're in trouble. Yeah. Bing. Anyway, but if one was to search across the internet for Microsoft and HCL, you'll see there's a link that Microsoft keeps updated as far as what's on the compatibility list. But then the other thing is, if you're looking to buy from a vendor, ask them. Carfax. Is this system completely on the Microsoft hardware compatibility list?
Well, I've been in the IBM world for almost 20 years, and I've never even heard of HCL before.
Okay.
That's the first time I've ever heard of it. So now
It's been there since pretty much day
education.
one.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you think of the iPad as a future for that?
We'll talk about that.
Okay, is that coming up in the?
It's coming up to a point. Yeah. Xbox Next, why do I bring this up here? Is because Microsoft is actually, when I say yawn, let me finish up that thought, is what Microsoft wants to do is they want to essentially have a constant, steady stream of updates so that they're not going to have that XP Office 2003 guy out there. But instead, people will go through these upgrades because they make sense, they add additional incentives. When we talk about Office 365, that gives you a way to pay a relatively low monthly cost, and you'll always have the latest version of Office. If you buy a machine today, you're getting Windows 7. Well, Windows 8 will be out by the end of the year. You're not going to get that if you buy a machine now. Okay.
Do they give you a free update, one update, or no?
They will give you an update when you get closer to it. So in other words, if you buy it like 2 or 3 months before before it comes out, they may give you an update coupon, but otherwise no. And the reason being is because actually you're not paying very much for the Windows. You're really buying it from Dell or Lenovo or whomever. So, okay. The Xbox Next, actually, there is, anybody Xbox here? Okay.
Is that a game thing?
It's a game thing.
Okay.
But it actually has some huge issues coming up as far as what they're trying to do. There's going to be a lot of integration with the Kinect, and we'll talk about that in a second. The Xbox Next is actually going to be integrating television with the Xbox platform. What they want to do is they want to essentially give people an alternative to traditional cable TV or satellite TV. And right now, the first upgrade that they did actually doesn't look bad, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. The Windows Phone, nobody cares. No, actually, there's 2 versions of the Windows Phone supposed to be out this year, and there's some excitement. Pretty much was a yawner when the Windows 7 phone came out last year, so we'll see what that. Kinect. Has anybody played with the Kinect?
I don't even know if that is it.
Okay. The Kinect, everybody played with a Wii?
Yeah.
Where you hold the thing with the Wii and it tracks this thing. What the Kinect does is it actually is a 3D monitor or device that sits in front of your TV. It looks out and it recognizes bodies.
Wow.
Okay? and it will recognize what you do. Have you played Fruit Ninja?
No.
Got to get Fruit Ninja. Got to get Fruit Ninja. So what happens in Fruit Ninja, and I did this, it was for testing purposes, is these fruit go tossing through on your screen, and you simply do this to chop the fruit. And the Kinect recognizes and you do this in any living room. And the Kinect recognizes your arm motions, your hand motions, and your feet, if I was 20 years younger, and shows the action on the screen accordingly. Okay? All sounds interesting for games, you know that? Microsoft did not originally release the programming tools, so somebody hacked it. And within about a month, people had, for example, you know the Vroom or the Voom, what's the vacuum cleaner? Zoom? Roomba, thank you. Someone had basically programmed the Roomba through their Xbox so he could make gestures and the vacuum cleaner would go.
Cool.
Okay? In addition to that, somebody else did their chair, their recliner.
Oh my.
So the chair would recline, would vibrate, the heater would turn on based on the gestures. People have a lot of spare time on their hands. Well, now there's a Kinect that's going to go on the PC. The Kinect device requires a fair amount of space. Now we had at Christmas, we had the grandkids over and all that kind of fun stuff, and this is in the family room, and my wife compensates for my geekness with her lack of geekness. And so they had no problem walking in front and around and all that while the grandkids are trying to do Fruit Ninja. The Kinect system was able to figure it all out. It recognized. And you could actually, it would show you the outline of the player. And when somebody walked in front, it immediately caught on with no loss of game. But you needed a larger area to go in. Yeah.
How do you think the Kinect will be used out, or will it be used outside of games?
Bingo. That's the cool thing, because there's a Kinect for the PC that's coming out first half this year, plus the programming tools, and this will actually recognize finger motion. So it will recognize this activity.
Wow.
So then when we see commercials and people
Yes.
move, okay.
It's starting to happen. That's the point.
Such technologies.
It's not even touch. It's wave.
Gesture.
Gesture. So if you watch Minority Report, you know, with Tom Cruise doing all this, and the lawyers, Elk and Elk, I think, in the morning, they both look like they're from, you know, Crypt Keeper or whatever. What I love is that when their hand motion and the icons move, it's not moving with their hand. The guy at one point goes like this, and an icon goes over here. Anyway, but now I'm going to get sued. but the thing is when we talk about what is the application here? The application is we've now, you know, I was talking with somebody else yesterday, and they were saying that right now the only connection we have with the world is this. Whether we're on a keyboard, we're on a pad, we're on a mouse, or whatever, it's all based on our fingertips. The Kinect takes us out of there and makes it so that we can actually, if you think about it from a 3D, a rendering standpoint, so if I do this and the system automatically sees that I'm grabbing the object, I can turn it, I can look at it, I can peel it apart.
Yeah.
The only problem is that my vision is still dependent upon the graphics display. I don't know if any of you have seen the goggles, where you can actually have the computer display on with a pair of goggles. So the whole idea of somebody sitting there with goggles on, seeing the display, 3D.
Like Iron Man?
Yeah, not Iron Man 2. You know, come on.
Or like Lawnmower Man?
You know, I never saw that one.
Oh, okay.
It was supposed to be a good one, yeah. Yeah. But they have the same idea. So you can have somebody who is essentially in a 3D world who's actually looking and manipulating data, seeing the results real time of what that person's doing.
Wow.
I mean, this is huge.
Right.
But not in 2012. But the first version of this for the PC is going to come out this year, and the programming interfaces have been open so that developers can develop for it. I'm excited about that. I don't even know if it'll be Microsoft ultimately who really breaks this wide open.
But the Kinect also, which is it does it recognizes.
Oh yeah, it recognizes voice as well.
So you can tell it to do things and it will do
Yeah.
things. So.
Yeah. So I can basically, I think you have to do this in order for it to recognize you. So if I'm sitting there on the couch and, you know, the remote control is like I'd have to lean at it. And, you know.
Or you just say Xbox Kinect.
Yeah, Xbox Kinect or wave your hand or whatever.
Well, they're even starting to do that for TVs.
Yeah.
You do the remote control, it puts it up on the screen, and you can change the channel and all that by moving your hands around.
It's like the old clap on, clap off.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is this Kinect is going to be like voice recognition for a few years, where it's not, you know, it's going to take a while till it really gets good.
I have not seen the new version of the Kinect, the one for the PC yet. But the one that we've played with the game, I'm very impressed by already. It's really the question of now we have, here's the hardware, here's the infrastructure, now developers have to make that happen. And there is not yet, I don't think, a really standard compelling, the goggle set to show the display. But yeah, I definitely think this is going to be.
So Kinect also takes video and pictures, so when you're in the midst
yeah.
of these games playing, you don't know it. It's sort of like when you're on a roller coaster and you get off and they have pictures of you. Well, it does the same thing while you're playing games. It takes videos and pictures, so at the end it says, well, here's sort of snapshots of your game or videos of your game. But you could also see that rolling into, like now you might use your iPad for FaceTime, but you could ultimately get to the point where, because if you have a Kinect on your TV, you can see video calls coming in, things of that nature, right through your TV.
Yeah. No, there's definitely so cool stuff. Cool stuff. Weather bugs. Yeah, hard drives. The biggest poster child right now was the floods that happened in Asia last year. Essentially wiped out some key manufacturers in the hard drive area. So right now it is very tough to get a lot of hard drives, and the prices have gone up like 40%, 50%. And also the other thing is, if you notice, the warranties have gone down. There were a lot of drives that were out there that came with 3-year manufacturer warranties. They're down to 1 now. And I don't mean this specifically because of hard drives, but when we have manufacturing that's so distributed, and we have we want to have no inventory to hold on to, all it takes is one piece provider to get knocked out for whatever reason. And all of a sudden, everybody's inventories run dry really, really quick. I don't see that doing anything but getting worse. I don't see that anything but getting worse. And especially since and it's kind of like the comment I made on the airline industry, we're so caught up in that gotta be cheapest. You know, whatever it is, if it's the cheapest, great, and if it's not, boy, there's gotta be a good reason. You know, and I don't, you know, everybody being really upset about the economy and then, you know, insisting on wanting 12-pack of tube socks for 99 cents. Just kind of, so. Back in the 90s, a lot of companies were just kind of like, oh yeah, we have to get backups. You know, they weren't necessarily consistent, they weren't necessarily testing, they weren't necessarily whatever. Business continuity is now really to the point where it's eminently affordable. So having a good plan, again, we're talking small, medium businesses, all right? To have something that says, yes, if the building goes out, yes, if our servers go out, yes, if this happens, we can do something about it so that our outage is going to be in a predefined period of time. We know how long it'll take to get back up. It's going to take a couple hours, it's going to take a day, it's going to take whatever, but we know what steps we need to take. You know, it used to be it was a strategic plan, we had to go through all these processes, all these procedures, have all these, no. Between the business continuity, the cloud-based backups, image-based restores, all that kind of technology that is there, it's off the shelf, it works, it's proven, and it's easy to test. And it's not that expensive, unless you have to buy hard drives, and we're back to that old flood thing. Okay? But it used to be, the comment I used to make was, back in the beginning, the only people who did backups were people who lost data. The only people who had antivirus were the people who got infected. The only people who had firewalls were people who got hacked. The only people who had surge protectors were people who got fried. The only people who had UPSs were people who lost power. You know, it was all of this this education and experience drove a lot of this stuff. And we're now to the point where business continuity is joining that. We can now talk about who's actually got it. Okay. Government regulations. Has anybody tried Wikipedia today?
It's not around.
That's what you're going to see.
Oh, really?
Yep.
One day.
For today.
Protest.
That's what you're going to see. Actually, you'll see something like this on Google as well.
Wait, it's going back up though?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's up. This is a purposeful thing. This was an Occupy Internet
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Essentially, Wikipedia, Google, other companies are trying to stop SOPA, Stop Online Piracy Act. And essentially, short story long, and I don't want to get too caught up into it, the whole idea is that Hollywood really, really likes this because they create the content.
Right.
And they want to make sure that people who make that content available inappropriately on the internet are made to pay. Well, the problem that Wikipedia has, that Google has, and a lot of these other people have, is that according to the current SOPA, they have responsibility. If someone goes and modifies a Wikipedia page and includes a link, and that link includes inappropriate material, pirated material, Wikipedia is guilty. Okay? Now, for those of you who have been around for a while, you may remember about 10 or so years ago, the same kind of issue dealt with blog entries or comments, as far as if you put in an inflammatory comment or an untrue comment about somebody else on somebody's blog page or somebody's web page or whatever, is the content provider responsible? Okay, well, now this is where we are with SOPA. Net neutrality actually was passed. Net neutrality allows, and this kind of gets into that question about you know, the bandwidth. The whole idea of net neutrality is two people who are going for internet data, both are given the exact same priority. You know, neither is more important than the other. Well, from a technical standpoint, if I'm talking over VoIP, if you and I are in a conversation, and I've got data going over to you, you've got data going over to me, if we have a bad connection or it slows down or whatever, we might lose connection, the voice, it's serious, it's an issue. Whereas if I'm loading a web page from your site, if it takes a little longer, I have a little bit of a delay, it's not the end of the world. Or even if I drop a couple pixels on a frame of a video, not a problem. So what net neutrality that was passed, and I think it's passed in September and took effect in November of last year, is that type of prioritization, to prioritize voice traffic over traditional traffic, that's okay. But then the other thing they wanted to do was to, if for example, you went to Apple, what would be a good example?
I have a good example.
Okay, good. Give me a
I
good
think it
example.
still exists today. When my son was, gosh, seven years old, he's 18. He would go to cartoonnetwork.com. The kids don't go to cartoonnetwork.com.
Oh.
Okay, I didn't know that one.
If you just go to it right now, porn will come up. The real Cartoon Network website is like .net or something. It's real shady, but
Okay.
it's slightly different. And kids just think cartoonnetwork.com. But this was probably about 10 years ago, and I think it still happens today.
Oh, that's not unfortunately protected by net neutrality.
Right.
But the same thing happened with whitehouse.com.
I was just going to
Yeah,
say
I
that,
remember
freaked
that.
me out, but I did that years ago,
Yeah,
and I got
I
a
did
porn
too.
site. I thought it was
Right.
the White House.
I did too.
Now the interesting thing about that story is the guy who actually started whitehouse.com originally started it as a political satire site.
Okay.
He couldn't make any money. He changed it over to a porn site, made a lot of money.
That's what Rachel said. She said it might still really be the way.
Well, no. What the net neutrality does is it allows the internet provider. So, for example, if you went to Time Warner, so if you have Time Warner cable, and you decided you wanted to take a look at
Yeah.
they could actually slow down the traffic or even deny you going to a competitor's of theirs. That was what some of the vendors like Time Warner and Cox and all that wanted to be able to do.
But you mean if I canceled my business with them, they?
No. If you still had business with them, but you tried to browse over to their competition's website to take a look at
really?
what they originally wanted. I'm not saying Time Warner as in they specifically did, but this would be an example,
Okay.
that they would be able to either deprioritize your traffic or block it altogether.
Wow.
The idea that the net is neutral, they cannot favor anybody's traffic. Your link or your traffic is just as important as mine. And they ended up, like I said, they ended up getting a reasonable approval on this because that makes sense. And this, no, they can't do that. So.
That to me seems like it would be against our constitutional rights because they're blocking information.
Well, but the thing is that you're paying for their service and they decide how to give you the service.
Yeah, I think the other thing about it would be somebody like a
also-
Time Warner who offers, obviously, cable service.
Yeah.
But they also offer internet service. And if you went to Microsoft and they started to offer programs where you bought the content through them, TV shows, movies, they might want to try to block that and slow it down because they don't want you to quit getting cable service and only just use their internet service. You know, you would say, well, I want to just get internet service from Warner Cable, but I don't want to get your cable TV because I can now get that from Hulu or whatever content provider, and that's what the net, one of the pieces is they don't, the bid is a bid. It doesn't matter what it is, and they're trying to, it's really a competition thing, you know.
Yep. And like I said, that did not go through, so.
Yeah.
But we've got those two issues that are causing some issues. The other point, you know, every year we talk about social media, yeah. The whole issue on social media is, again, back in the 90s, it got to the point where you essentially, if you were a business, people said you have to have a web page. If you don't have a web page, how are you going to stay in business? How are you going to be in business? Okay, well, we're past that now.
Yeah.
Now we're at the point of, do you have a social media presence? Strategy would be great, but you have to have at least a social media presence. And if you don't, what are you doing? Okay, so again, similar to what we said about business continuity, similar to what we said about, you know, a lot of these things, you end up with this, it's this bleeding edge technology, it's the leading edge technology, it's the latest technology, it's technology. Okay? We're starting to get to the point where social media is just technology. You know. Okay. And IT is a commodity. Okay? This stuff's just supposed to work. And more, that's getting to the point as far as both the services and the effect of the services and all that kind of fun stuff. So.